Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. I am a retired NYPD detective with 20 plus years of law enforcement. And if you like all things true crime related from a police perspective, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk about domestic violence. This is a subject that is near and dear to me because during the course of my career as a New York City police officer, I handled hundreds, perhaps even arguably thousands of domestic violence calls over the course of the 20 years. I made it a point to this year pinpoint and talk directly about domestic violence, about the effects on family, the effects on community, the effects on the people who are victims of domestic violence. If you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to this community. Hit the notification bell and give it a thumbs up. I have three awesome guests. Connie Alleyne, you know her from the Civilian Corrections Academy. Lily Sanders, you know, she's been talking it up with you guys. She's a domestic violence expert. And I have Kristin Evans. If you guys have been living under a rock, then you don't know Kristin Evans. She is a domestic violence survivor. Her video that was viral across the internet. We saw it play out in November of 2021, right before Christmas time. Her significant other, the father of her child, threw her around her apartment like a rag doll, but she's here tonight to talk to us about that, and she's got to survive it, and she got through it. Unlike Gabby Petito, who we all know had suffered domestic violence at the hands of her fiance, Brian Laundrie, we know that he strangled her. He murdered her by strangulation over in the Grand Teton National Park. So before I get into it, I wanted to set up a couple of quick videos and first say hello to my moderators and all of the folks who are here in the chat. Thank you so much. You guys are a great, great part of this community. I'm going to just play a quick little video of Zac Stacy. He is a former NFL. I can't even call him a man. He's a former NFL player, and he is the perpetrator behind the assault. And his 5-month-old son was in the very living room in the apartment where he threw Kristin around like a rag doll. And I'm going to show a video. If you do suffer from PTSD or any type of anxiety, if you're a victim and you've been through a violent assault, I recommend that maybe you put the volume down or just don't watch. It's just a quick piece I'm going to play, and I think it's important that you guys see it. I have about 4 pieces of media that I'm going to play before I introduce my guests. So without further ado, I'm going to play this little piece for you, and I got permission from Kristin to play it because I did ask her. I wanted to know if it was okay to play it, and she agreed with me that it was okay to play it, and I thank her for that. She's a very, very brave, strong woman. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to set it up for you guys. And those of you who know me, I am challenged when it comes to the media, but I try to do the best that I can. So let me set this up. I don't have my producer here, so I'm a one-man wrecking crew tonight. So let me get this set up, and I will play this for you, I promise, in 2 seconds. Here we go. Right.
There is a nationwide search for this former NFL player seen in this disturbing video that's difficult to watch.
Things are way different now.
I'm Dave Puglisi in Orange County, where police are looking for former NFL running back Zac Stacy, who's accused of beating his ex-girlfriend before taking off.
I'm also afraid that he's going to get away with this.
Fox 35 is the only local news station to talk with the victim as police search the nation for Zac Stacy days after the alleged attack.
I feel lost in the system.
We're asking police what took so long to attempt an arrest. Zac Stacy, the former New York Jets running back, is on the run, wanted in Orange County.
Police say he attacked his ex-girlfriend, as you see right behind us, who was also the mother of his infant son. That attack happening right in front of the baby. This happened in the town of Oakland, west of Orlando, and police tell us they believe Stacy left the state right after this incident.
Fox 35's Dave Puglisi joins us live right now. And Dave, you spoke to Stacy's ex-girlfriend in an exclusive interview, and she's still very shaken up by all of this.
Joanne, she's nervous and she's scared, and rightfully so. When we talked to her, she was packing up her things in order to get to a safe place. She tells me that she's scared that Stacy might be coming back.
This was just the last straw, I would say. I really, truly feel that if it continues, he will kill me.
The attack is coming at the hands of her ex-boyfriend and former NFLer, Zac.
I am resisting the urge to look to see who it is. I started crying when you walked up because I'm scared, you know?
Evans spoke with Fox 35.
All right, that's enough. I played a little bit more than what I probably should have here. But again, I wanted to play that because I thought that it was very important that victims out there see how violent these things get. And this could have really been a lot worse than what happened. But Kristin has to live with this. And you guys seeing those images, it's so important because so many people don't have video. It's the victim's word against the perpetrator. And as a police officer and a detective, that footage is so important. And if you can set that up and you can have that for your own protection, it's so important. Without further ado, I want to introduce my first guest, Lily Sanders. She's a domestic violence expert. I was introduced to her by a really, really good friend of the show. Lisa Lockwood sent me an email, said, this is the gal to have on. You need to get in touch with her. And what did I do? I got in touch with her. So without further ado, there she is. Lily Sanders, thank you so much for joining Crime Time with DutyRon.
My pleasure, Ron. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because you watch those videos from the outside looking in. And if you're a survivor or you're someone that had even experienced just a part of something like that yesterday, 30 years ago, it brings you back. It really brings you back to a bad memory, but it makes you happy that you've got your freedom today.
I got to be honest with you, Lil. Even me as a seasoned law enforcement professional, it was hard for me to watch that. And I was going to play the edited version, and I did have that queued up, but I said, if I play the edited version, the audience and the folks who watch this for educational reasons, I thought it was important for them to see that. Not because we want to show this horrific act, but we want people to see how real domestic violence is and how dangerous it is. Without further ado, I want to also introduce Kristin Evans. She is kind enough to allow us to show this footage. It's been played millions of times over the internet. She has admitted to me that a lot of times she looks away and really doesn't like to look at this. So Kristin Evans, checking in from Florida, thank you so much for taking your time out to come on to Crime Time with DutyRon. It means a lot to all of us. Thank you, Kristin.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And I know that that was difficult to see and watch. I mean, you and I have had so many conversations about your case, and you know, me as like the fatherly figure that I was trying to be to you, I said, make sure you talk to your attorney, make sure you talk to your people, because the last thing I want to do is hurt you any further with having a conversation about this. But I'm glad that you were able to speak to your counsel, and you said to me in many conversations, Ron, I really want to talk about this. I really want to try to help other people going through this. Do you want to talk a little bit about what goes through your mind when you watched that and the times that you do see this play out over and over on TV?
It's it's inexplicable in a lot of ways because it's just a feeling. You know, it's something that just brings you back to where you were when it happened, and it happened to me. So it's, you know, you watch these things online, or or you see these things on TV and you think to yourself like, all right, relax, because it's just a movie or it's just a show, it's not real. But when you see it, it was like, for me, I had to convince myself like, that's real. That's really my life. It is a weird, very weird place to be psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a natural place for anybody to be. Lily, I was remiss by not introducing you and telling the audience about some of your experience. If you want, real quick, before we get into a conversation and bring Connie on, just let the audience know what your background is and what brings you here on the domestic violence expert forefront.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I was raised in a domestically violent home. I definitely put it behind me, so I thought. And I guess about at the age of 37, 38, while I was on my path to my career and well into my career, I did a 180 pivot and I wound up in 2 back-to-back marriages. For 15 years, I was a battered wife, living behind a veil of silence. Who knew that I would become a statistic? It was, to Kristin's point, for me, it was mind-boggling because I thought, oh, I don't want that ever in my life. And here I was. And another underscore, I definitely can understand how Kristin feels. And just to really bring that a little bit more forward is, when we look at someone who has a car that is robbed and people read it or they hear about it from a friend, and most people are like, oh, that's awful. But when it happens to you, it's real.
Right.
And it's a much different feeling than when you just see it on the news or you see a clip on television.
How did you become to be a domestic violence expert? Was there something with you as our guest here? She wants to help other potential victims that are out there because, as a police officer, I responded to hundreds, arguably thousands of domestic violence. It was almost seemed like it was one after the other. Every shift I would handle dozens of calls for domestic violence. Was it at the point where you said to yourself, hey, I was a victim for years and years, I want to help others?
That's a great question, Ron. What happened was when I really woke up, I had my awakening for the first and last time. Of course, there were little baby awakenings up until that last time. I basically secluded myself and I wrote a book. I lived off of savings, the little bit that I had left, because I also encountered a lot of the financial issues that happens through the judicial system. And I wrote a book. Wow. And I always used to love to write. I've journaled all of my life, and I finally put things on paper, and it's called Truth to Triumph. Wow. And I launched that book in 2017. I went on a radio tour for 8 months, and that began my path as an expert. Awesome. And I began speaking out, and I began clarifying things. What my niche is, and how I became an expert is I teach people how to identify the disguises behind domestic violence so that they don't become a statistic. One of the things that we always hear is we even hear loved ones of victims that did not survive, as in the Petito case and all the cases that we see, all of the time, every day, is I didn't see the red flags. Well, my passion is really helping parents understand that, learn the red flags. My passion is teaching children from a young age what a healthy relationship actually is, so that you do not become a victim. Because if you don't identify those disguises, Ron, you are not immune to it, nor are your children.
Yeah. And it almost becomes something that is passed down almost to like generation to generation. And you don't want to see that. But all too often I hear people say, well, my father beat my mother, my grandfather beat my grandmother. And it's like a trickle effect. Waiting in patiently is Connie Alleyne. She is awesome. She was the director of Safe Horizons here locally in New York. She is she's the founder of the Civilian Corrections Academy. Connie Alleyne, thank you so much for joining us. You were on my last live stream on domestic violence, and you hit grand slam out of the ballpark. Thank you so much for joining Crime Time with DutyRon. You're muted. You're muted. Your mic.
Sorry. Thank you for having me again. It's definitely been one of those experiences where, even as I was watching the video, all I'm thinking to myself is, no matter how long you work in this environment, it doesn't ever take the edge off, right? It doesn't make it feel any less harsh. I think the vicarious trauma that you experience as someone working with victims of domestic violence just doesn't get easier. And all I could think of was the women that came into shelter. And it really literally just took me back as I'm watching it. And I'm like, oh my God. And then when you replay it, I'm like, oh, it's almost like, it's like that crushing feeling almost,
right,
that like, it just doesn't go away. And so, Kristin, thank you for just the bravery to be able to come and talk about it, because you survived that. And like, you're able to really help others get out of those kind of situations, or at least show them that it's possible to get out of it.
Yeah, that's the important part, is that being able to come forward and speak and be brave enough to talk. It's so hard for a victim of domestic violence to even come forward to the police. We'll hear Kristin tell her story of past domestic violence incidents with Zac, and she kind of overlooked it because she wanted him to be there for his only child. And that sometimes could be the difference between life and death. It could also be the difference between injury and being safe. And sometimes we love the people who are around us, whether it's a guy loving a woman or a woman loving a guy. And because domestic violence happens to men. I have to put that out there. The statistics show higher women to be the victim, but I have to put that out there. It's a two-way street with this thing. And like you said, Connie, on the first live that we did, it really knows no boundaries. It's happening to both sides of the coin. Connie, for the listening audience, would you just give some of your stats out, because they're impressive?
Sure. So officially, I am Connie Alleyne. I am the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I am currently training non-uniformed staff who work in corrections or who want to work in corrections exactly how to engage with that population. I'm also a podcast host of The Fly Behind the Wall, and I am a co-host with Anthony Ganji on Tier Talk, which we do all the time. We talk everything corrections. I'm also a criminal justice professor at Monroe College, so I'm training up the next generation of criminal justice students. And finally, I am an author. I am the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon, which is really, my journey through corrections, because I started in corrections 20 years ago. And it's like, how really did that happen? So yeah, it did happen.
You left out a very important part. You were the director of A Safe Horizons.
Yes. So along that journey was 10 years on Rikers Island as a health services manager. And then I went into the domestic violence world, where I was the shelter director for Safe Horizon in New York. And certainly I wouldn't release a location, but that in of itself was one of those experiences that I thought I was strong enough to navigate. And quite frankly, the first woman to come in with herself, she was bruised, she had her children, she had a few garbage bags. And, the first thing I thought was, oh, how do I help? Right? Because you think until you're actually in it, right? Because this woman may not want anyone to touch her. She may not want anyone to jump in and try to take over, because she's been controlled long enough, right? And so it really is being able to discern where folks are when they come into shelter and what level of support. And there's a level of patience that you have to have. I think from a systemic perspective, like we just got to get all the information, right? We got to take everything down. But when someone first comes in and they've just had this experience and this is part of their safety plan, you know, the reality is that we've got to allow them to come in, get settled, get their emotions in order, and like really just be a resource of support until they're ready to kind of like, you know, talk about what took place.
Yeah. And, you know, that's such an important part of a resource to a woman being a battered woman, being beaten by her significant other, to have a place to go. And some folks don't even know that it's out there. They just think, well, I have to just tough this up, or they're embarrassed to come forward and say, hey, my relationship has failed. There's so many aspects to this that we'll get into. But I want to turn to Kristin quickly to talk a little bit about, if you feel comfortable with it, talk to the audience a little bit about your relationship prior to you becoming pregnant with Zac's baby. Was it a good relationship? Was it a long-term relationship? Were you guys dating? People want to know about this because I get asked that question on DutyRon.com a lot about you. Like, what was the relationship like? Was he dreamy and very respectful and nice? Were you led down a road, a yellow brick road, so to speak? If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Well, it's like textbook narcissist. That's how the relationship went. It was the love bombing, you know, in the beginning. So everyone loves that. Everyone loves to be love bombed because you want to feel all those great things that he would say. And he would say that, you know, he put me on a pedestal, which actually made me uncomfortable. And I knew that those were red flags, but I kind of just ignored it. Because the model behavior that I had had throughout my life didn't allow me to recognize that that's dysfunctional. So, you know, early on it was the love bombing stage, and then it was, you know, like ghosting. There was days where I wouldn't hear from him, and then suddenly he would be like, "Hey, sorry, I was tied up," and then like that would be it. That's where he would say, "Hey, I was doing this," or "Hey, I had to run to Atlanta." "Oh, I had to go to Alabama," you know, or just whatever, because we had a long distance relationship. So it was very easy for him to mask originally. And then he figured ways to manipulate me. So I'm not the type of person that you could manipulate and say, you're going to do this or you're going to do that, because I already knew, like, that's how abusers are. They will try to, you know, separate you from your friends and things like I knew that part. So he knew that I wasn't going to be manipulated that way. So instead he guilted me. So he would say, you know, it's my anxiety, it's my depression. These are just the way that I need to handle things. Sometimes I need, you know, time out and a break. And I would say, well, that's fine, but you can communicate that. If you need time, you know, space or whatever, just communicate that with me. And it was never, it was always a very hard thing for me to set a boundary. If there was a boundary like that, for instance, like, I just need some communication. It would be like, why do you always attack me? Why do you always say that, you know, it's always about what I don't do, or something like it? It would always be a deflection or a justification or something. He always had an excuse that was a valid excuse to him. But it just, you know, just a lot of things just didn't make sense. And like Lily was saying, like, she journaled a lot. I journal a lot as well. And so through my relationship, I would just be very confused, like, all the time I was confused, because it was up and down roller coaster of emotions. I even said to him at one point, I said, I've been writing these down. I know when we have these arguments and it's like a cycle with you. And I would say that to him, and he was like, what do you mean it's a cycle? I'm like, it's almost like you're on a menstrual cycle. Like, it was like 28 days, and then suddenly, or the moon is full and suddenly you're acting out. You know, I was really trying to figure it out, like, why is this? So anytime I would try to address it, he hated that. Very blunt open person. So for me, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, very transparent, which was great for him because then he was able to manipulate me more, knowing that, you know, I'm transparent. But it was just, it was very much like up and down all the time. We would have breaks, you know, and he would sleep with other women. I found like a prescription for him, you know, for like Cialis or something like that. And then if I would say something about it, you know, he would deny that there were other people. And then once I got pregnant, he admitted and said, you know, of course you knew that I was sleeping with other people. And I, you know, just, it's just, these kind of things are very typical with abusers like that, with narcissists specifically, in all honesty. And it's just kind of sad that I allowed it to happen.
And I think that, you know, a lot of women are probably resonating with what you're saying because in some form or another, it's sometimes different. No two situations are the same. But I'm sure that there's ladies that are out here and women and men that are listening to this and saying, hey, that was happening to me too. And I know, Lily, you spoke to me so many times on the phone about your history of abuse and domestic violence that you endured. And, you know, a lot of this stuff, I'm sure, is ringing a bell for you. You want to talk?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. And to your point, no one has the same relationship as another person. You know, everyone has, there's so many characteristics in an abuser, and you could pick from 1 to 20. There's just so many, and most of them are disguised. In fact, when you start to just kind of see someone, date someone, or even you're just talking to them, it's really their representative. It's not really them. So you think that you're falling for someone, but it's really not. It's someone putting up this whole entire front. But I have to honor Kristin for coming forward and speaking at such an early time after this happens to her, because in my case, I actually stopped. I healed. I shut the world off, except for my son, of course, and my close family. But I wound up really diving into learning about communication, relationship, and I wound up becoming a master life coach. And that was around the time I was writing Truth to Triumph. And so one thing I am masterful at is understanding what someone is trying to coerce you into just from behavior, just from the way they answer a question or what they even offer. And one of the things that you want to be really clear of is that you don't need to communicate everything to someone. How long do you really know a person, right? And so my point, what I mean by that is, for instance, I journaled, and there were many things that I knew that I knew I wasn't 100% warm and fuzzy about what was going on, and that one day I would have enough nerve to pack up my things with my son and leave. It was just a matter of how I was going to do that. Understand, I was an entrepreneur. I was running a high six-figure, I was running gyms for women. Yeah. Many times I went to work with sunglasses on. Sometimes I didn't go to work and I had to just lie there on the ground talking and pretending that everything was fine. So, I understand what that's like. And what you were saying earlier, even Connie and Ron, is it's not so much that you're embarrassed, but there is a tremendous amount of shame. And no one likes to tell anyone, not even their best friend, not their mother, not their father. No one wants to tell anyone that they've been minimized, abused, just treated badly. It's a shameful thing. You want to destroy someone, shame them.
Yeah. What I want to say too is, I assembled this panel here because I know that these are the experts. I was a law enforcement professional who responded to calls for service from people. And I explained today to Lily, and I think I also talked to Kristin about it. I would go to homes and settle a domestic violence call. There would be an injury. The perpetrator would split the scene and run away in typical cowardly fashion. We would take the report and we would make recommendations and then give advice. And then 2 days later, we'd come back and the same person was assaulted again a second time. And we would say, well, why are you back together with him? And the common denominator was he forced his way in the door. He's stronger than me. He pushed his way in. He followed me. And back in the 90s, when I was a cop, there wasn't the cell phones of today. We didn't have the modern technology where you could track people on iPhones and see where their movements are and where the Google Earth and all this. None of that existed. And the thing of it is it still was happening. It was still happening. And I think now with modern technology, it makes it even easier for these narcissistic control freaks to follow and track the movements of their potential victims. And I can't overemphasize the importance of training for law enforcement. And, I may get some crap for this, but I don't care. I feel that the emphasis should be on training the men and women in blue who respond to these calls. And it's going to bring me to my next piece on Gabby Petito. I'm going to play the body cam footage from Moab. Now, this may be triggering to some folks because this resulted in this girl's murder and death. How they handled this should be used as a national standard to train law enforcement how to identify the indicators of a dangerous situation. Now, we don't have a crystal ball. I will say this, that it is a tough situation for any cop to figure out exactly what's happening in an hour time. Now, in Moab, they're not jumping from call to call. So in New York City, we wouldn't have spent that much time with the two of them. They both would have been in handcuffs and been arrested. Period, point blank. You could talk to Sergeant Bill Cannon. He's a good friend of mine. He's a supervisor. He worked in the New York City Police Department over 27 years. We both had many conversations about this, and we agree that both would be arrested. It would be cross complaints, and then they would figure it out in court. Now, would that have given time for her to make a phone call to her parents? We don't know. And it's not right to even Monday morning quarterback it. We're talking about a woman, a young girl who lost her life at the hands of her fiance. But that being said, I feel that it is important that we educate and re-educate and retrain and train and retrain for the most current and most effective tools to enforce calls for domestic violence across the slate. And I think we all can agree to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my situation and just that.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk about this till the sun goes down. There's so many people who could say, I was dissatisfied with what the police did. Now, police have a tough job because here in New York City, I'd have 5 calls waiting, stacked up on top of the call that I'm currently handling. Yeah. Whereas in smaller places like in Utah, there was probably not a backlog or a grid of calls. That's why they were able to sit 4 to 6 officers. I think 2 other park rangers came. So around 4 or 5 officers showed up on the scene. And in New York City, it'd be like the boss would be like, come on, we got to make it, what's going to happen here? Are they both going to go or what's going to happen? So it's more about liability. We really can't, on the surface at the scene, make a complete decision of exactly what happened because you're going to have his side, her side, and then something that's the truth in between. But here it was clear and evident that she was not right. And I'm going to play a bit of this. I'm not going to play the whole thing. So if you guys don't mind, again, if you suffer from any type of PTSD or anything in regards to this, we're going to see some body cam footage, and I'm only going to play 2 minutes of it. But I think it's important that you see it and see how she acts and what she says to these officers. And I'm going to try to see if I can get just a small piece of this. Of course, my computer is giving me a hard time. All right, here we go. I got it. Yes. All right, here we go, guys. Usually Josh is here to do this for me, so I'm doing double duty right now. All right, here we go. Right. This is in Utah, Moab, the first police officer to come and stop Gabby and Brian in Utah.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me?
Yeah.
No, park?
Oh, it isn't park yet.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm just sorry. We've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got the stuff, flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
Yeah, buddy.
I just want to point out quickly to the audience, listening audience, over 400 people here. She immediately, 35 seconds into this, has already taken responsibility for why they hit the curb. And she's already putting the blame on herself. And she's crying. I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let the rest of this play because it's only about 2 minutes.
I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door. Okay? Why don't you come over here? SO2T9. I have the female that was in the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, "I'm sorry that I'm so mean because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just I guess my vibe is I am like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That's my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I just have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been I don't know, he's been down there. I don't know, we've just been fighting all morning and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car?
Because he told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty.
So right away, we see that she completely took blame for the whole entire stop. And I can go on with this and let her continue to tell these two officers that it was all because of her wanting to keep the van clean. She was making excuses for Brian's activity. And I'm sure that Kristin, you've seen and heard this in some form or another in your relationship. And I'm sure, Lily, you've seen this happen. Anything jump out at you here? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is so disturbing. This body cam is so disturbing on so many levels. But let's be clear here. This is not a case. It was not a case of an over anxious young woman with OCD. It was such a clear case. The red flags were there from, to your point, Ron, the moment that he even approached them in the van. All of the self-blame, maybe it's my vibe. How about when she said, he doesn't even think I can do any of this? And so that's the minimizing. That's, if you can imagine, look, according to the NCADV, occurrences are not are all of the time. They're never one-off occurrences, according to me, as far as when I coach people and as far as when I speak to my audience. Everyone needs to know that it's never one-off occurrence. I'm sure that Kristin can tell you the same. It's never just one day you woke up and they were in a bad mood. Bullshit. And if you tell yourself that, then you're lying about your own relationship. So you need to understand that. Clearly, she was totally worked up, not from just a road trip. This is, to me, I look at this is someone that has been walking on eggshells for over a year at least. Don't forget, they're coming out of COVID. Right. So their relationship was able to escalate that much faster.
You know, on a last show, Connie and I looked at this and we talked about this, and basically they're in a back of a small little Ford Transit van. Okay. When you have an apartment or a big home where you can have an argument and go, all right, I'm going to this side, I'm going to that side, or I'm leaving and going out. In the middle of nowhere, you at nighttime, you can't leave the back of that van if you're having a fight or an argument. You're there. I watched her on her YouTube channel fix a nice dinner with salad and all this stuff, but they were laying on top of it. It was basically, the food was right on top of them. So in this situation, you can't open up the back of the door and go out in the Grand Tetons or go out in the middle of the wilderness and walk it off. You got to just tough it out together. So I think that small enclosed space, the traveling over the road, and a lot of other contributing factors built to it. Connie, I wanted to go to you and ask you, when Brian stays at that safe house or whatever you want to call it, hotel where they give that service, what type of counseling is, if any, is given to folks, or what should be given to folks? And let's just say, if not in this case, let's just say we flip the script here and the woman goes to a place like that, a safe haven. What's afforded to them? What should be afforded to them? I mean, I know you can only speak on New York, but I'd like to hear your side of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, of course, there is sort of the mental and emotional support that they need. So whether it's psychotherapy or it's talk therapy, whichever way people want to refer to it as, I don't feel that everyone needs psychotropic meds. Sometimes you're dealing with a trauma. You need to be able to work through that trauma and be able to talk to someone about what was going on. A lot of times, though, women do need support financially. They need to figure out how they're going to be, because that's usually like, it's the thought of, how am I going to survive this, right? Now that I've taken this step to separate myself, how do I survive this? And you think food, right? You think shelter. How do I take care of my children? And usually that's the economic piece that becomes very burdensome to try to navigate that, while thinking of what are the legal implications that I'm going to have to deal with, and will I be able to afford it, right? And honestly, what you also see is women really wanting to know that their children are going to be safe, right? So how am I going to be able to provide for my child, whether it's childcare, whether it's just making sure that they have food. So when they come into shelter, we make sure that they have food. We make sure that if they need medical services, we have them connected to medical services. If it's legal services, we connect them to legal services. We connect them to mental health services, you name it. We try to make sure that we sort of wrap them with all of those services in the moment, especially just to help them become stable. And for each person, it may take, it's a different time frame, right? It may take longer for one than it might take for someone else, right? And for different reasons, which I think that's something that we have to be mindful of. Many times they're going through these situations for so long that it may take a very long time to provide them with the necessary support so that they can be stable or self-sustaining.
Right. And, you know, that's an important thing for people to know, that those resources are available to them. You know, it may vary from state to state, location to location. If you're in these remote areas, I'm sure that there's a plan in place. There's got to be, each county has to, you know, have a plan in place for domestic violence. But, you know, I don't know. I can't speak for these smaller places. We definitely can speak for the New York metro area. Kristin now is, What was social services afforded to you, if you don't mind I ask? I mean, I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but were you afforded some of the things that Connie is talking about, Chris?
Yeah, so when I called Harbor House, which is here locally, that's who helped me. And they so we can't in the state of Florida file emergency injunctions because there's no money for it. There's no funding. They used to be able to do that on the weekends and at night. With Harbor House, they have attorneys. But they're like right now there's no funding. So we're trying to raise funding for that. But yeah, I was offered an attorney for free that helped me file an injunction. Now she wasn't able to go past the injunction, but she connected me with some other lawyers that I have now that fight her law firm. And they're the ones that are helping me through the rest of this stuff. And they're advocates for me with the state as well. Because, sometimes that gets a little convoluted.
Yeah. And for someone who doesn't know the system and has never been through a situation like this, it could be overwhelming, right?
Very, very extremely. You have to have an advocate. You cannot do it alone. You can't. You just can't. There's too much. There's too many emotions. Like Lily said, the only reason that I'm speaking out now is because I have to. It's not because I really necessarily even wanted to, because there's still so much that hasn't even been done. And you can't do it alone. Like every single day I have questions and, if it was just the state attorney, I can't call the state attorney and ask these questions, and you have to be your own advocate a lot of the times too, even when you have an advocate, just to make sure that your case continues to move forward. Right. So you just can't do it alone. You need the resources that they give you that are available for you.
100%. If I may step in, for everyone that are residing in remote states and cities and states, the NCADV has a state by state, all kinds of stats and also where you would contact. And I'm sure Connie will tell you the same, state by state. So that's the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I did give Ron, that's part of the resources that I gave you. So people can always look there and then take it from there. And then to Kristin's point, the advocate is immeasurable as far as how much they can help you, right, Connie? And this is something I've never talked about this in public. I never put this in my book, Truth to Triumph, but I will tell you this. Domestic violence sees no gender, no economic status. And for me, I was the supporter. I was the breadwinner, and I was so financially stricken because he was underemployed. And as broken as the judicial system is, they separate in New York State. They separate crime with divorce, and I lost everything. I lost everything that I had. I lost everything. I went from being up here to feeling so shameful and asking my attorney if he could write a letter so that I can get help and to get food stamps. It was pathetic. And I'm someone that used to feed others. It was pathetic.
Terrible. It's like being re-victimized all over again.
I do want to say something too, real quick. So like another thing that I don't think a lot of advocates or a lot of people know that advocates do is they're there with you at your hearing and for your injunction. So they're there with you to help you through your whole process. And
they'll hold your hand. They're standing right with you, right?
I needed that because I broke completely down before we went into the hearing. It's terrifying to face your abuser, when you're going into something like that, and to do it alone. I don't think I would have been. I probably would have left. Honestly, like I was so distraught. Yeah. But they were there.
It's traumatizing enough to have it happen to you physically. Then to go through that process, it's intimidating. It's
everything about it is traumatizing and re-traumatizing every time you tell the story.
Yeah. It's amazing. I spoke out about this. Zac, when arrested in the airport, he what a lot of people didn't know, because I didn't let the rest of that play, is that after Zac Stacy assaulted Kristin, he took off and left Florida. He went to
Actually,
okay.
he was in town and let me know that he was in town on Sunday. He did assault someone else the same day that he assaulted me. And I told the police. And they had the opportunity. I called them 4 days in a row and I told them that he was at home. They asked me, did I file an injunction? I said, since yesterday, no, there's no way I can do that because there's no way to file an emergency injunction. So they said there's nothing we can do. Even with the videos they had already seen, but they never went to arrest him because they only charged him originally with misdemeanor battery.
Terrible.
So I had to fight for them to upgrade the charges. And then he left.
Jesus. So he goes straight from assaulting you to assaulting another person. It's not part of your case, so we're not going to speak about it.
Right.
And they failed to act on that. And so he got away with that. And then proceeded to go back to a family. I don't know, Tennessee, he said he came
Friend.
From. Right.
A friend who had multiple weapons in his home.
Unbelievable. Well, he had the audacity to talk to 2 police officers from Orlando, I believe it is, right? Orlando.
Yep.
I'm going to play just a small piece of him in handcuffs. That's my African gray, 33-year-old African gray parrot whistling and carrying on. He wants some attention. He's across the room, but he's making himself known. I'm going to play this little piece. It's Zac Stacy actually turning the tables and blaming you, the victim, and saying that she set him up. I have to let the people hear this. But before I go to that clip, Joe Murray, our criminal defense attorney, is in the chat. He sent a $10 super chat. He makes this statement. I don't know where this conversation was going, but everybody in the chat is arguing back and forth. He says it's misleading for an expert to state that there were signs of domestic violence because probable cause is based upon reasonable person standard, not an expert opinion standard. Now, that's legal criminal defense attorney conversation. Joe, I'm wearing Allegedly Guilty, the podcast. This is Joe's podcast. So I'm wearing it underneath my shirt, Allegedly Guilty. I appreciate you sending in that super chat. I don't know where that came from or what it was about. And I wanted to read it because you are a friend and I value, he's come on to my show quite a bit. He knows the legal side. Unfortunately, he's a criminal defense attorney. He defends anybody who stands charged of a crime. We're going to hear Zac's criminal defense attorney talk on his behalf, but we're going to hear him again victim shame Kristin while he's in handcuffs at the airport. As he's caught, coincidentally, he said he was coming to turn himself in, but somebody saw him in the airport, and kudos to whoever saw him and phoned the police. I don't know if it was a woman or a guy. I think it was a woman. They saw him and they knew about the whole situation, and they called 911, and he got locked up in the airport, and I love it. So it was great that somebody did that. Whoever did it, kudos to you. Here we go. That's just a heap of bullshit. So it's just amazing that this man, after seeing and knowing that he was caught on video, throwing you around like a rag doll, assaulting you in front of his child and your child, your other.
Well, I mean, he just continues to lie. He doesn't even have family in Nashville.
Yeah. So
the whole thing is just a lie.
Right. And he said he had to leave for his safety.
For his own mental health and his safety. Yeah.
So it's just a prime example of what extent these abusers will go to continually re-victimize and he's trying to shame you. He knew he was on body cam probably, or maybe he didn't know. He's talking.
No, they know because it beeps.
Right. So he knew. So again,
well, he knew there were cameras in my home.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So
that's how much rage this guy had. I want to talk about a figure that we looked at. It's just staggering. On an average, 20 people per minute are physically abused or assaulted by their partner, domestic partner. In America, that's the figures for America. 20 people every minute. We've been live for 55 minutes. Times that by 20. And that's how many people during this live stream have been assaulted by their domestic partner. Stack on the folks who are in different other situations, and you can compound that and times it probably by 2. These figures are just staggering. They're just, that's what made me say, hey, I have to speak about this, and I'm going to continue to speak about this. It's one of the things that I vowed to speak about in 2022, and loud and clear. YouTube frowns upon this type of conversation, and I don't care. For me, I say,
oh, hell no.
I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it all day, every day, because guys like Zac Stacy, cowards like Zac Stacy, and I'm pointing to my monitor over here, they need to be exposed for what they are. And listen, if you're a NFL star, a car salesman, or a janitor, or someone who is, anywhere in between, this is nobody should get away with this. And our criminal justice system, our first responders, everybody needs to tighten it up, and we need to do better. We're not doing it. We're not doing it right. And Lily, you're living proof of it. Kristin is going through it. Connie, you've seen it on all different levels, and I've seen it on the police level. And my police experience goes back to the 90s. I'm an old man. 30 years ago, I was patrolling the streets. But guess what? Domestic violence was alive and well while I was a cop. And in 1995, when O.J. Simpson, that whole verdict came down, we came out with this domestic violence, the DIRs. We had to make arrests. Must arrests came into play. But look at what happened. Look at what it took. A national story that was seen live all over the world with O.J. Simpson. Nicole Brown Simpson paid her life, and her friend, the Goldman family. So I say this: we need to do better. We need to push our legislators. We need to push the courts, the locals. We need to talk about this. And I could have put stats and figures. I have 7 or 8 different saved things here that I was going to show. But I think the ladies here said it great. I mean, Kristin, you are a brave warrior, and you have your moments where you feel this is not going good, but you're going to stay at it. You're going to stay at it for yourself. You're going to stay at it for the other victims that are out there going through it right now as we speak. I am going to link Lily's website and all of her resources in the description of this live. I'm going to link it onto my website. Kristin, if you want, I'll plug and list all of your social media. I mean, I know that you're pretty popular.
I do have a GoFundMe up to help.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a GoFundMe specifically set up to help, donate some of that money to help with the resources in Florida. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to start up the emergency injunctions again. That's really my goal.
Yeah. So I will make a donation on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon to the GoFundMe Kristin has up. That is going to come from the great, generous folks, my Patreon supporters, the people who send in super chats. I am going to just pull the chat real quick. Lily, do you have anything else that you want to add to it? I mean, I want to show your wheel, the circle, and all of that stuff that you sent me, because I did save that. But, I think you have a lot to say. So.
Yeah, I do. Do we just have if you just have a few minutes, do you want me to just say something in closing?
Well, I'm not going to close just yet. But
okay. Okay, fine. First of all, what you were saying about the stats, well, you all know the stats: 1 in 3 women, 1 in 7 men. But the point is, if you think about it, think about all of the people that are just on this show right now. That means every third person is either being abused right now, or has been abused, or is currently being abused. And the point is that it's not just a personal matter. And the problem is, and I'm sure Connie will agree, is that the judicial system and the authorities, even you would know this, Ron, is that we're seeing domestic violence as a private matter when it really should be seen as a public health matter, where we have the approach of strategic systems put in place so that we are showing relationship health. We're posting signs all over restaurants, all over different businesses. It's education and support in the workspace. How many women lose jobs because of domestic violence? Because their corporations they don't understand it. They have no tolerance, and there's no education to it. God forbid they should be able to work from home off their laptop. It's such a huge issue, but it also, the bigger picture is it bleeds into our communities. Look at the Waukesha in Minnesota. Look at that was the Christmas parade that turned into mayhem. It was absolutely a disgusting excuse for someone who just left a domestically violent incident, and he went off and killed so many innocent people. And that's why this needs to be really seen as, and the approach must be a public health approach, so that it's at first actions. Actions, that's what we need to do.
I agree.
And that's just kind of putting that in a nutshell as far as that goes. But I think that one of the things that we need to know is the problem that most people do not see the red flags. And even Kristin said she saw some in the beginning, but she kind of ignored them. And, like we hear this all the time. And this is the reason, because the perpetrator's violent tendencies, they're usually disguised. And also their intentions, all of that, like she said, the love bombing. If I were to just quickly unlock some of those disguises for everyone here as quote unquote beginning signs, would be definitely the love bombing. In many cases, this is a key sign of an abuser, and a very common cycle in the beginning stages of an abusive relationship. So you want to be on the alert, because all of that attention and all of that affection can be assigned to something much worse. You don't want to fall into that trap. Now, to be clear, even if someone legitimately thinks you're awesome, right? And why not? It doesn't mean that you need to be with that person all of the time, or you don't even have to accept or exchange that affection. So what can you do? Put it through the test. I always say, put it through the test. Don't respond to texts and calls all of the time. In fact, be curious. Why are they texting and calling me so much? Doesn't this person have a life? And don't be available all of the time. And this isn't playing games. This is really balancing your life. A key thing that everyone needs to know is to keep your life balanced between your family, your friends, your work, your hobbies, and then your potential intimate partner. You need to counterbalance all of that. It's not all or one. It's not all or nothing. I remember my ex used to say, we move as one. That's ridiculous. At the time, I thought, of course I was much younger, I thought, oh, how romantic. There's nothing romantic about it. However, it's all part of that, the coercion tactics is what I like to call it. No one moves as one. No one moves as one with anyone. What they really mean is, you don't go anywhere without me. That's what they mean. I can't tell.
Another thing that I really noticed, and I forgot to mention earlier, something to pay attention to is how they treat other people in front of you, like servers at restaurants, young kids, that are working at a fast food place, stuff like that. He was not nice to them. So that's another thing to look out for.
100%. Now,
animals also.
Wow.
Yes, that's even interesting. That's really interesting what you're saying, because remember I said that there's like these multifaceted characteristics, right? You'll also have the one, like my ex-husband, everyone thought he was so charming. Everyone thought he was just so charismatic, and
they fool everybody.
He fooled everyone. And which brings me to a point. Parents, you parents that are watching this with young adult children, with tweens, teens, young adults, children in universities, when you ask your daughter or son if their girlfriend or boyfriend will be joining you, and I'm using both genders, Ron, because it happens in both genders.
Yes.
If they say always, that's a sign. That's a sign.
Yeah.
Isolation. Okay, this goes misunderstood. In most cases, it tricks the victim and even the victim's parents. Example, you stop hanging out with your best friend. You say no to family gatherings because your boyfriend doesn't want to go. You start justifying why you don't want to go. All of this happens. You start hanging out more alone when your boyfriend is out or not available. So you don't make other plans. This is a big one for parents to be on top of. Is your teen or tween or teen or college student, are they falling asleep in their bed with FaceTime or on video chat with their intimate partner? That is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
That's a huge red flag that really only tells you that the partner does not want, is controlling your daughter as far as not making sure that she's not anywhere until she literally falls asleep. It's a huge red flag. Yeah. And then it only gets worse because, you have your boyfriend move in on early stages of your relationship, or you move in with his, and we saw that with the Gabby Petito case, right? We saw how it was relevant there. She moved away from Long Island. She moved down from New York down to Florida to live with Brian and his family instead of the dad. The dad lived down there as well, right? She quit her job. We saw the video cam. She quit her job to go across country. That's not romantic. It looks romantic.
I wouldn't say not necessarily all the time. There are some cases where, they're genuinely in love or they're genuinely good people.
Right.
Where
I agree.
Where
Not
you
all
would
the time.
normally, where you would normally see things like that is when they start to make you feel guilty about doing other things outside of the relationship, where they make you feel guilty about being an individual, because you have to have your individual self, and you should both be individuals and then come together. And where in abusive relationships, they don't want that. They want you to be them. You're their property.
So, Kristin, that's like a major one that I think we don't really spend a lot of time on, because I feel that a lot of times that is the beginning, right? Like they enjoy spending all this time with you. They want this time with you. And then when you choose to want to do other things, you still want to engage with your family, then it becomes problematic. Right. And I think that's when we should be having those conversations, just to make sure that if you find that your child is now isolating themselves or they're withdrawing when they would have normally been engaged with a family activity, those are those things that we need to jump on early on, because, many times they do see it. Oh, he just loves me, right? As opposed to seeing that this is just the beginning and it will only escalate from here.
1,000%, Connie.
Or
1,000%.
If you notice, depression, when they're not around their significant other or boyfriend or whatever, girlfriend, if they start to become sad because of things like, they haven't talked to them today, they don't know what's going on, confusion, those are definitely signs to look out for too.
They stop wearing makeup. They stop. They stop grooming themselves. Right. And it's interesting because the young usually, and let's be clear. Let's be very, very clear. I am talking about the highest statistics according to the NCADV. Young women between the ages of 18 and 24 are the ones most commonly in domestically abusive relationships with their intimate partner. And Connie, those are still the stats even today, right? So I'm talking about that age range. And having said that, you have someone 18, 19, 20, 23, 22, 23, 24, a young man that's telling the girl, you look much better without makeup. Look, I'm 59. My boyfriend tells me that. But you know what? If I want to put on the fucking makeup, I'm going to put on makeup.
You tell him, girl.
Am I allowed to say that? No, but the point is, it's not that I think he's lying, Kristin. I'm sure he does think I'm beautiful without makeup.
Right.
But guess what? I need to feel good about me.
Oh,
yeah,
hell no.
Yeah, there was.
But
there
also, it's your choice, right?
It's my choice.
So all too often, they get the option taken away.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think that's what we have to be mindful of, that when your choices are being taken from you, then it's like, oh, well, I can't wear makeup.
Or they make fun of you
Right.
in a way to make you feel insecure about it. Like I had my eyelashes done and he was like, what are you going to prom? You know, and just like making a joke, but it really like made me feel like, well, I'm never getting, and I did not get my eyelashes done ever again.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a moment, because I think it's going to help a lot of people that are watching this show today and ongoing. It's not just about looking at those signs and saying, oh, this is what they do, this is how they act, and this is how they behave. But let's talk about the one that is open to that, the vulnerable to becoming a victim. Let's talk about how we can stop them from becoming a victim. And really, there's very, very clear ways. And that's why seeing those signs in the beginning is when you really, you don't continue into that friendship. And because these are clear signs of something much worse coming up. Mm-hmm. I have talked to people that were so in love and just blindsided. And then suddenly 10, 15 years later, the woman is isolated and her husband has multiple guns holding them to her head. And when I tell you that you have to stop it before it starts, meaning if you feel that someone is controlling you, you have to stop, take a breath, and just really, at the risk of sounding so spiritual, you have to stop and say, hey, okay, how am I going to navigate through this relationship without losing the truth of who I am, without losing myself? Yeah. And if you can't do that, and if there are all of these little question marks, the point is, and I say this as a coach from the bottom of my heart, if you need to work hard on a relationship, if you need to work at it, it ain't worth anything. I'm telling you right now, you can pick and choose a relationship that is really healthy just as easily as you can pick one that is very toxic.
Yeah. One thing real quick. Sorry. Just remembered this about Gabby when she was in the video. She said, he stresses me out. No relationship should make you feel bad or stressed or any of that. Like if you feel bad in your relationship, you feel guilty, you feel like you don't have self-worth. Right. You shouldn't be in that relationship. That is abuse. Even if it's just mental abuse, it's still abuse. People yelling at you, that's abuse. Like there's no reason to yell and scream and curse at and call someone names in a relationship. You should speak to each other with respect. So if you don't have respect, or if they don't respect you or your boundaries or anything like that, that's the sign.
And yes, she also showed that he was not supporting her. She actually said he didn't think that I could do this.
Exactly.
That's not what an effective partnership is supposed to do. I support my wife. She supports me. We've been together almost 40 years. We've been married 30. You don't stay married and in a relationship if you're not paying attention to each other, and it's a two-way street. Kristin, I wanted to ask if it's okay with you to show your Instagram. The GoFundMe is on there. I didn't want to show it unless it was okay with you. And there's some pictures that you posted of some of your injuries, if you don't mind. I want to show the people what you're sharing on your social.
Yeah, that was all in my injunction. So
okay, I'm going to go full screen with this. This is Kristin Evans. It's Chris underscore. Is that how
underscore 3 times?
Okay. underscore. She's got the Twitter check, Instagram verified check mark. There's her GoFundMe. You can click right on it. It'll take you right over there. And her Harbor House, Florida, and a couple of other the law firm that represents her. But I'm going to click on this photograph. Do you want to talk about this?
So this is the incident from August. This was in my injunction. I don't even know if I can say exactly what happened, but it was the incident in August. I can say that.
Okay, so
that's a handprint. The one previous, that's knuckles.
yeah, I see it. Wow, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's my leg. Yeah,
And
that's the inside of my leg.
Right. Wow. And this is all from an August. This is not even the November incident.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
That was days later, by the way.
Wow.
So this one's from November. This is from where I want to say that I landed on that leg, or I hit it on the TV stand.
Right. So this is from the video that we saw.
That's my other leg. I did have to get a tetanus shot for that abrasion.
Jesus.
And it's still bruised.
Yeah.
Even now. That's from August as well.
Terrible.
That's from November. So that's like when I was slammed into the baby seat. I don't know if that video played, but part of it. So I was thrown into that window and it broke. And if I had gone through that window, the shards of glass that were outside on the ground, so I have some bricks on the side there. So when the rain falls off, we don't have gutters on this house. So when the rain falls off, it goes onto the bricks, and the glass was on the brick. So if I had gone through that window, there could have been
Yeah, and that's not safety glass, so that could have been big shards of glass.
Well, I had that glass in my feet for the rest of the week at least.
Jesus.
So yeah, that's from August as well.
Back of your arm, it looks like there.
The front.
Yeah. Okay, well, I won't show that. All right. So this is, everyone can go over to her Instagram. I want to just try to get back to it. There it is. She posts regularly, and she does a lot of PSAs and a lot of her talking. She's shared her story on Instagram. Everyone go over and follow her. Let her know that you came from Crime Time with DutyRon. And if you want to contribute to her GoFundMe, there it is. And it says to help domestic violence victims, and this is the authorized one. I will link this.
I have to update the bio and everything like that. I haven't even been able to log in. There's a lot going on, but so everyone knows that money is going to two specific things. One, I'm setting up a fund for women in the area, or men that want to go and have boxing classes or self-defense classes. So that will pay for that. And then also to donate to our local domestic violence advocates. So
it's great. I'm going to be donating $250 to that.
Thank you.
GoFundMe tonight when we get off. That's courtesy of Crime Time with DutyRon, and I'll continue to donate to. I sent $1,500 to Sunrise over in on the west coast of Florida. It was a fundraiser for Gabby Petito in her name, but it went directly to the shelter, and we sent money there on a fundraiser. I want to just look to the chat, if you ladies don't mind. Connie, I know I got to pay you by the hour, so I'm into you over an hour and 20. I'm just kidding. Connie is a great friend. Let's look at the chat, because Princess Michelle says, and she's a great friend, a channel member. She's asking, Kristin, is he out on bail?
Yes, there have been no official charges filed by the state as of yet. So everything that's been filed was through the police. Then they arrest him on those charges, and then he is released on bond until the state files charges.
Now that's got to be kind of scary for you, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, this guy is out. Of course, he did get instruction. I told you I was going to play a little bit of his bond hearing. But, you know, I think that this information and this conversation is more important than that. I could do a live without you and show that hearing. He was given specific instructions on surrendering firearms, how
his passport,
right, how he should stay away from you, and no
and the child
contract, no third-party contact, no electronic, no text messaging, no, you know, the standard stay away. Connie and I, Lily, you know all about this. I've been around this at many domestic violence court hearings. he was given full strict instructions. Whose cat am I hearing purring?
Mine. I'm sorry.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Look, there he is. He or she.
He was the one in the video. A lot of people have asked me if he's okay.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
fine.
one.
He
Really quick.
is
Yeah.
very, very needy.
It's adorable. I'm highly allergic to cats, so I can start sneezing just looking at them, but I still will pet them and hold them in my. I'm allergic to dogs.
Well, he doesn't have any fur, so.
I'm allergic to dogs. I have a 13-year-old hot dog, little Oscar. So I love animals. So again, I want to go to the chat because all the ladies and gents have been very, very. I mean, I saw a couple of arguments, but that's just the standard. It happens on Crime Time with DutyRon. Nobody can agree
Happens on social
on
media.
everything, right? Yeah, this is part of it, but everyone's pretty good. Voices for Hope is here. Sherilyn and Schofner is here. DutyRon, I think. Wait a minute. I just want to highlight that comment. I think we have an abused person in the chat. How do we help them? All right. So again, anybody that's going through this, here's the number, National Domestic Violence Hotline. I've been showing this and playing this, putting this up, 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 7233. Reach out for local resources. Call 911 if you are going through something. Listen, this is not the place for us. We're not here to solve a dispute or solve a problem. If somebody is legitimately going through it, I'm telling you as a former law enforcement professional, call 911 or reach out to someone who you could trust immediately and talk about it. Don't remain silent. But this is not the place or the time for me to settle that or get into that. I'm looking at the chat for any questions for our guests, our two guests, and our crime victim here, Kristin. Please put the questions in the chat and keep it pertaining to this topic that we're speaking about here. Hello from Australia. Good to see you. Thank you, Jules. Always a pleasure to see you. My folks outside of the country, we have folks from South Africa I saw chiming in, Ireland, the United Kingdom, England, all over the UK. You guys are great. We love it. Joe Murray's firing everybody up with his criminal defense attorney conversations. I love Joe Murray, but sometimes he really rubs people the wrong way. So, Joe, I might take the shirt and put it in my fireplace a little bit later. But I love you. I love you. I love you. Let's see. Any other questions coming into on the chat? Because I do want to listen. This is a live interactive chat. You guys have been very good about listening to us talking. I wanted to see if I could pick out any of the questions.
I have a question for Kristin.
Okay.
I just wanted to know, Kristin, do you currently have a safety plan in the event that he violates the protection order?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't want to tell everything, but I will say that I myself, my son and my daughter have a bag that's always ready to go.
Good.
And at my back door, I have a key for my car, and at my front door, I have a key for my car. So if I have to leave out of either one, I have something I can grab while there.
I think that's enough. We'll keep it at that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, we talk about safety plans all the time. And so it doesn't sound like, you have much protection while he's out on bond. And so knowing that you have a plan in the event that he violates, it was just kind of weighing on me.
Yeah, I have upgraded my security as well around my house to be alerted in advance if someone is on the property, as well as if they break into.
Yeah. Kristin and I spoke about that early on, and that was a great thing that you did there because that will give you advanced early warning if someone comes up and breaches your property.
Yes.
Casper from Brisbane, Australia. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. My son is crying.
Go get him. So let me just go quickly to the chat. I'm just going to remove her for a second. So a few people came in. Questions. Here we go. Lily, Alicia B., who's a channel member, great friend of mine. She says, question, can we have part 2 of this conversation, please? Absolutely. We're going to do part 2, and we may do a part 3. This, we just really touched on the outline, and there was so much to talk about when it comes to Kristin's case, highlighting a little bit of Gabby Petito. And the reason I brought up with Lily, and I went and had conversations with Lily about this, And I even talked to Connie quickly tonight about it. The reason we brought Gabby Petito into this conversation is because her case is internationally known and everybody knows about it. But it is the other extreme of domestic violence. We have Kristin, who's now attending to her son, who was beaten pretty badly, thrown around her apartment, and it could have been a lot worse. She could have been killed, right? Anybody who is at the hands of an abuser, of a domestic abuser, can be killed at any moment, right? You don't know, is this guy going to pull a gun or a knife out? Is he going to strangle her to death, just like what happened to Gabby Petito? But we wanted to show Gabby Petito because that's the extreme what happened, right? We have a death, we have a murder. We have Kristin here, who is kind and willing enough to talk about her situation. And it's a very, very strong reminder to everybody that if you feel your situation, you have it under control, you don't. These things have a tendency to escalate, and they can escalate from 0 to 100 miles an hour like that. And before you know it, you have a real bad problem. So get the help, get out, reach out. Do not remain silent. It's not something you can handle on your own. You need to reach out to the resources.
Yeah.
And if I can add, just I know that Connie was asking Kristin a few moments ago, but aside from even that, I totally understand how nervous that Kristin's back, that you are, seeing as he's is out and about, even though you do have the stay away. For me, I had a stay away, and I had a panic alarm put in my home, and my perpetrator, my ex, he violated the order many, 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 many times. And I want to tell this to everyone that's listening. They will violate the order many, many, many times. Look, statistics tell you, the NCADV tells you that the most dangerous time is after you leave. But what I would put to you is, although that may be true as far as the statistics go, if you really take responsibility for yourself and your child, you yourself need to send a clear message to your abuser that it's over. And the way that you do that is by zero communication, because once you communicate even to a third party, and Ron will tell you this, and Connie will agree to this as well, you too have violated the order. And the order is designed, and I'm giving kudos to the police department. The order is designed to protect you. But if you're not going to stay away, then why the heck do you think they're going to stay away? The moment you open the doors of communication, even to a family member of your perpetrator, a friend of your perpetrator, anyone associated to that abuser, you are to stay away from and not communicate. If you have to block them, block them. If you have to ignore them, ignore them. At this point in your life, at this moment, you caring how someone else thinks about if you get back to them is not the issue. Your issue is the safety and the stability and peace for yourself and your child. If you cannot do it for yourself, do it for your child, if anything at all. But you will be safe if you don't violate the order. And you should have an exit plan. You should have a passport put aside. I did this before I left. Passport, put aside your birth certificate, your children's passports and birth certificates. Start saving money. Save cash everywhere that you can. If you have to take it out of whatever food money they give you, if they're the ones controlling the money, you need to save money. You should also secure a credit card of your own with your name on it. And shut the heck up. You don't talk about this. This is something that is very, very private. This is what's going to be part of your exit plan. Just a credit card that's secure under your name, and you're going to ask a friend, someone that you trust, maybe it can be at that address, so that your abuser doesn't start seeing this mail coming in. Today it's easier because it's more digital. And the other thing is, you need to also take all of your keys. The day that I left, although I had my exit bag, it was the worst beating of my life. And he smashed all of the keys. And thank God I thought to collect all of the other keys, the spare keys. So I had a way out. And then I had to actually put some of the keys together by wires to go back and get my car from, because he also had my things. Because remember, I was the one that was, you know, he was taking everything of mine. So it was a shit show. But I've got to tell you something. You have to have that exit plan. You must. Your children's book bags, couple of outfits for school for your child, because they have to feel safe and they have to feel secure. And you have to get your shit together in front of your kids. As upset as you are, you have to fake it until you make it. And when your child says, Mommy, is everything okay? The answer is yes. Everything is fine, sweetheart. Mommy has everything. Mommy's taking care of everything, or Daddy's taking care of everything. And if you can't do that, then, you know, go take some improv classes or something, because your job is to make your children feel safe. It's all about the children.
Yeah, this is a lot of great information, and I'm looking at the chat, and everybody is agreeing. There's so many people who, Denise Spalding sent in $100 on Super Chat. Thank you for supporting Kristin. That money that you sent in will go directly to her GoFundMe. You know, any support, whether it's direct or indirect, is going to be refunneled or channeled to the proper place. So
I think. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think I saw someone say something in the chat, and I wanted to touch on this. They said something about what should neighbors do if they see something.
I highlighted that.
Yeah. So I think that's really important, because sometimes the mother or father doesn't want to leave the situation, but the children are still involved. And so if you are a neighbor and you see this, I think it's just as important to call it in, because those children shouldn't be in that situation. And if their parent doesn't want to take them out of the situation, then somebody else needs to.
Right. I'll give a great example, and thank you for touching on that. I, about a year ago, had my neighbor next door, right directly next to my house. Her daughter was crying, and she was crying in the summertime, and I heard her with the windows closed, the air conditioners are on. I could hear her crying. I didn't just go about my business. I homed in on it, and I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. So her father lives directly across the street. I went to her parents' house, and I said, is everything all right with your daughter and your granddaughter? And they went over there with the key, and she was home alone crying. The mother and father had an altercation. And had I just went about my business and said, hey, this is not my business, I don't know what would have happened there. But I know that everything seems to be okay now. They went through counseling, and, you know, they've been married and been together for a long time. But it's, again, a prime example is if you see something that's not right, like this guy, these two people who called in from the Moonflower, the Gabby Petito, the two people, bless you, they saw something and they called, you know, just like the person in the airport that saw this perp, Zac Stacy, coming into the airport, and they're like, hey, this guy just beat the shit out of somebody. I saw it on TV. He's wanted. And that's what you need. That's what we need. Again,
can I just add something to that?
Of course.
When the neighbors kind of observe these things too, you know, I think what we have to do also is just reserve our judgment, right? Because it's not that, sometimes in some cases, it is not that the person being abused doesn't want to leave. Right. Sometimes they feel they can't leave for whatever reason. And just that mere person making a phone call to almost summons the help, right, may be the thing that person needs to help them get out, right? Yes. And so just don't ignore it, because that may be the call that gives them now a shield. There's some protection here. Law enforcement is at my door, right? Maybe I couldn't get to the phone. Maybe he took my phone. You know, who knows why this person can't advocate for themselves in the moment. And just that one call may save the life of that person and their children.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. That's
I had
so
a lot
critical.
of people witness my situation in August, and no one called. No one said anything.
Amazing. It blows my mind that people can just go about their business and not say something. Now I'm gonna tell a story about when I was a police officer, and again I told you I responded to hundreds, arguably thousands of these calls. I had a young Spanish girl who was in a very bad relationship with a significant other, and I think she was in her early 20s. She couldn't be more than 25. And she went through all the process and got the order of protection, but it was a repeat call. Like we would get the call and we would know, oh, it's these two fighting again, these two arguing again. You know, no matter how many times we separate them or send them out and he gets arrested, he comes back and he's there. I think it was the 7th or 8th call for domestic violence. And she had the order of protection in her back pocket, and he stabbed her and killed her, stabbed her to death. And we took that order of protection. I'll never forget it. I'll take this to my grave. We took that order of protection out of her back pocket, and I said to my partner, I said, well, what the fuck did this do? What did this do? It did nothing. And that's the sad, true reality of what we don't hear about. That didn't make the nightly news. Nobody was there to report on it. Nobody cared. And that was the fucked up part, is that I said to myself, what did we do here? Everybody failed this girl, including herself. She failed herself. She went through the steps. She went through what she had to do, but she just didn't get out.
Yeah.
And the moral of this story is, if you don't make the effort and see the clear and evident danger in front of you after 6 or 8 times, I mean, you could bring a horse to water and you can't make him drink. It's the same concept. You know, I wish and I prayed so many nights after that she would have gotten out. But it was a statistic that nobody got to see, nobody got to hear. It didn't make the nightly news. And nobody, after the next day, 2 days, it was business as usual at that building. Nobody was talking about it.
It's awful. And it happens every day. And that's why I say that, you know, look, you are safer to leave, regardless of what everyone says, that's the most dangerous time, because as long as you really send that clear message that it's over and there's no communication. And, you know, you were saying earlier also that, you know, perhaps this person knocked down her door every time and followed her. And one of the things one of my missions is to put more panic alarms in place. I was blessed to have one of 25 panic alarms that was given to me. There was only 25 in all of Suffolk and Nassau County. That's a large span.
Wow.
25. And when you think that, you know, there's 1 in 3 women being abused every day, I mean, it's crazy that, and how lucky was I to have one of those 25. But I got to tell you something, and to Kristin's point, I was my own advocate. Until the cows came home, I told the DA, I told everyone, he's going to kill me. I am in fear of my life. He is going to kill me. And they put a panic alarm in my house.
I didn't even. There is nothing. They don't have it. They don't even have monitoring in Orange County.
See, this is why it has to be. But do you see, Ron? This is
why
I'm be a public health approach. This is not a private matter.
We have to do better. We have to do better.
We have to do better.
Nobody should be like Kristin down here.
No one should be like Kristin. Absolutely not.
Hear her on TV saying, "I'm scared for my life."
Absolutely.
And I know that there are situations that people are in that are way worse.
Oh yeah.
You know, Kristin, I speak with, you know, as an expert, I speak with, she's a high profile attorney, and I got to tell you, there is someone, and she actually would love the publicity. Her name is Dora, and she called the police, she had her top, and she called the police several times. And each time the police diffused it, and this was in Brooklyn. Yeah. And they actually told her, if you call again, we're going to have you arrested. So the next time she didn't call, and he threw her out He threw her out of a 3-story window.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And she had an order of protection.
Terrible. All right, listen, we're coming up on almost 2 hours. I got this old man's got to get to bed. You know, your son's waking up. Connie,
My phone's about to die too.
Yeah. So I want to just say thank you to Kristin, first and foremost, Kristin Evans. You're so strong and so brave. You don't even realize how strong you are, and I'm honored that you let me reach out to you, and I extended that olive branch, and I'm sure that lots of people who reach out to you. I took that extra step to make this happen because I really care. I really do care about you, and I think that we become friends, and I think I'll remain friends with you as long as you are willing to be friends. I want to try to help in any way that I can, and my platform, you could use it anytime to get a message out. You could reach out to Lily, Connie. We all are now a part of your family. So
thank you.
If you need anything, night or day, you know that you could reach out to me, unless I'm sleeping, and I'll wake up and I'll answer. But I want to thank Connie. I want to thank Lily for coming in. Any final words, Kristin, for anybody watching out there?
You just put me on the spot. So just to reiterate, one thing I did want to say, we talk about having injunctions and them not really doing much, but it is a very, very important part of this process. So don't be discouraged just because it is a piece of paper. It is a necessary piece of paper, because if they do violate it, you can call and have them arrested. So, and there will be multiple, reports on this person. So that does help your case. So I did want to say that, do not be discouraged about getting an injunction. That is an important part of
Excellent. It. Yeah. Yeah. And, coming from somebody who's going through it, she knows how important that is. Lily, any final words for the audience?
Sure. Yes. Let's reach the masses, and I'm open to, if anyone has universities that they'd like me to speak to, the young folks and also the faculty, and any organizations, I'm happy to do so. Please reach out on my website, lilysanders.live.
Excellent. Connie, you always got inspirational words. What do you got for the troops?
I mean, listen, at this point, I think we've emphasized how important it is that, one, we're supporting victims of domestic violence, but that we've got our eyes open, our ears open. If we see something, we will say something. I think knowing that there are resources available is really important. In many states, you can call 211 if you don't even know what other number to call. I mean, 911 is always an answer, but 211 is also an option. The other thing I would just say is that, there's no shame in getting help, because I know shame is one of those reasons why people stay. And, you just don't want your life to be gone because you were ashamed, So if you're in a situation and you need help, please get it. And just know that the right victim services advocate is not judging you. That person is doing and will do everything and anything to protect you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well said. Well said. And Lily, I just saw your private messages. We'll do it on the next show. I'm going to close this out. Now, I think we really covered a lot here. We do have more that Lily and I are going to be speaking about. There's so much more to this, to domestic violence. We've just touched a little bit on it. There's so much more to get out there, but this is not a one and done. So again, I like to just always end all of these live streams by saying, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially victims of crime and their families across the globe. They need us now more than ever. So support anybody and everybody, fellow mankind, fellow womankind. Reach out no matter what. If you know someone's going through something, or you suspect that someone's going through something, reach out to them. Just that little bit is, are you okay? That can mean the difference. That can be a world of difference to somebody. And I want to say a special thank you to the replay viewers, all the live chatters, the people who donated. I see that there's some donations to the GoFundMe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sabrina McKenzie and a couple of other folks who are in the chat here saying hello. And you guys are just an instrumental part of making this great interactive live stream just worth it to do. So thank you to everybody. On behalf of Lily, Kristin, and Connie, I'm saying goodnight to you guys from New York. I appreciate you guys spending your 2 hours with me. And Connie, I got some cash for you after this. Peace from New York. I'll talk to you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Bye from Florida.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.